American Horror Stories has returned to our screens with the second part of Season 3 this Halloween, as they like to call it. With a year having gone by since the previous 4 episodes, part of me feels like this maybe should have been billed as Season 4, but that just might be me being pedantic. The first story that featured was called Backrooms, and it was a great way for the season to return. Focused on an award-winning writer called Danny and the disappearance of his son Roman, we witnessed his slow descent into darkness, the mystery around the backrooms that he was entering, and him going through what could only be described as a fever dream as we saw his life slowly unravel and the lie that was buried within his mind rise to the surface, resulting in deadly consequences. So with that, let's jump into the video and break down all that there was to take away from the episode. Here is American Horror Stories Season 3 Episode 5 Backrooms Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. What did the ending mean? The final scene in the episode was one that did leave food for thought. As the episode went on, we slowly realized that Daniel could have been involved in the killing of his son, hence why he kept ending up in what was described as the backrooms. The backrooms were these liminal spaces between here and there, and it was a place that you were taken to if you'd done wrong whilst living. And the only way to rid yourself of being haunted by them and ending up there was by admitting the truth and ridding yourself of the lie that was buried within. This was shown to us through Eli when he lied about the fact that he hit Charlotte Hansley with his car and that it was his fault. It was only when he admitted the truth and ended up in jail that he stopped going there, accepting his punishment whilst in the living world. During the climax of the movie, we saw that the police were outside of Danny's door, and even at that point, he didn't admit that he was responsible for the killing of his son. At that point, there was even video footage of the crime taking place due to there being a camera in the park that picked it up. This was almost like Danny's last chance to rid himself of the lie and to never return to those rooms, but in that moment, he chose not to, and ultimately ended up fighting back against the police and was eventually killed. Daniel went down some escalators, which was symbolic of him arriving in hell. I'd also say the red hue was a stylistic way of it maybe being the flames, tying into what he said earlier on in the episode where he mentioned how you could be here one moment and then be in hell in the next, and that was where he was now. He was faced with the woman in red on the swing, the setting where he killed his son as she was cradling Roman, and he was begging her to be able to return home. However, obviously, we knew that that wasn't possible because he'd been shot several times and was dead in the real world. After she pointed him towards an exit sign, he ended up in a waiting room where he pulled out a numbered ticket and was waiting to be seen. On the table, there were magazines that were focused on how to be a good father, something that he obviously wasn't because he killed his son. And the number that was called first was number 1. Danny's ticket was this one on screen, showing that he was going to be there for an extremely long time. This was Daniel's personal hell catered to him, sat there waiting, not being able to do anything with the constant reminder of what he did to his son, showing that he was a bad father and the fact that he betrayed the trust and love that his son put in him. Daniel killed him because he felt as though he was in the way, was a nuisance, and was a distraction to him being able to write and continue on his pathway of his successful career, something he valued over his own family. Guilt was something that was at the core of this episode, and Daniel had none of it. Hence why he was punished by seeing the backrooms repeatedly. When he was in the supermarket setting, he heard Roman's voice and even had flashbacks to when he killed Roman. Yet that wasn't enough to make the guilt come to the forefront and actually make him want to admit the wrong that he'd done. So unlike Eli, where he was essentially rewarded by it not plaguing his mind anymore, Danny had to face the punishment over and over again, and ultimately spend an eternity in hell reflecting on what he'd done. There were moments throughout the episode which made it seem like Danny was the killer. For example, when he was crying over his son's toy and saying sorry, when he was looking at his watch and was in a rush at his son's birthday party, and also when he was constantly getting frustrated with the noise that Danny was making upstairs. I'd also argue the fact that he was writing a movie about a father and a son and the idea that the son went missing. He was almost writing that script based on the experience of him killing his own son, so it was subtly hinted to us throughout the runtime. Danny was in hell, and he was paying for the crime that he committed and the lack of honesty and no sense of guilt that was there. My review of the episode. I thought this was an okay episode of the show. I don't think it was particularly original in its approach, nor did the twist or reveal at the end take me by surprise. It feels like something that's kind of been done before. I would say though, the first third of the episode where we had to guess what the backrooms actually were and what their purpose was, that was interesting to guess and follow along with. I thought the transitions in this episode, which were centered around Danny drifting between reality and also the liminal space, was really creative, and it was so smooth to watch. It felt like it transported us with him, and it made both versions of the reality feel extremely real. Michael Imperioli delivered a strong performance in this episode as Danny. He pretty much carried the episode as there was only a very small cast with him at the center of it. So he did a good job in holding his own and progressing the story forward with it just being him. In terms of the episode being frightening or haunting, I don't really think it was, to be honest. It wasn't even really psychologically unsettling. It was more thought-provoking, and it just made us question what it was that was going on and how Danny was going to end up outside of it. The twist was something that I thought was actually relatively predictable too. In fact, I wouldn't even really say it was a twist because it was always kind of insinuated that Danny was responsible. In terms of the motive of the killing, that was something that I feel like should have been revealed a little bit more. It just kind of felt like he killed his son because he found him to be a pain and time-consuming, but it was never really clarified. I guess that kind of makes him even more psychotic, but it would have been good to have seen the darker side to the character a bit more and try and understand his mind. In terms of the runtime, 40 minutes felt like the right amount of time to tell this story. It didn't drag on too much, and it knew how it wanted to tell the story. Any longer, and I think it would have felt just a bit too long. One thing that I didn't really see the need for in this episode were the individuals in the masks that were chasing after Danny. I'm guessing they were almost like the Woman in Red's minions or workers, as was shown to us in the supermarket when the voice on the tannoy said that the worker would be with him soon. It feels like they were there to add a haunting element to the episode, but I didn't really see the point of them as they didn't actually do anything other than chase Danny around. They were never going to harm him, and they weren't actually that scary, so it just didn't really feel like they were needed. I get that they were the masks from his movie that he won an award for, and it was showing that the liminal space was connected to him rather than it just being surface level, but I feel like they could have been more frightening. This is the first episode of the season that I've watched, so the next episode that I'll be checking out and covering is titled Clone, so I'm intrigued to see if that one's going to be better or worse. As of now, I would still probably say that Bestie is the best episode in Season 3, the first episode from Part 1, but I'm hoping an episode in this new installment will be able to top it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So, there you have it, American Horror Stories Season 3 Episode 5 Backrooms Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on American Horror Story or stories, then click on the card in the top corner, there's a few playlists there. Or alternatively, you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. I'm going to be breaking down every episode from American Horror Stories, so be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the videos. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.